Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and I'll ask for a roll call, please.
Ms. Hodges?
Here.
Mr. Mills?
Here.
Mr. Oden?
Here.
Ms. Rose Spurgeon?
Here.
Mr. Kleindienst?
Here. I'll ask for a report on the posting of the agenda, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the agenda you have before you was posted in accordance with council procedures concerning special calls.
Thank you. We'll turn to public comments. Anyone wishing to address the council on matters listed on the agenda? We are again taking public comments on only the 2 items on the agenda. Please come forward at this time. Thank you. We'll close public comments. We'll turn to our study session. First item on the agenda is the Tramway Gas Station, our future visitor center. Mr. Reddy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Council, on the visitor center, our task was to, after you had decided to make the purchase of the visitor center, our task was to get it in order for the move-in of the visitor center and the tribal visitor center. What we have for you this evening is the schematics on the initial architectural design of what that will be, both the internal and the external schematics. And I would ask John Raymond, our Director of Economic and Community Affairs, to come to the microphone. He will introduce the architects, and they will display for you what those schematics will be, along with cost estimates. Our question this evening is to get some direction on the schematics so we can bring back to you the actual designs to go out to bid. With that, I give you Mr. Raymond. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to bring up the architects. They've got the what do you call them? Mobile mics, portable mics, and they'll probably actually be at the boards. But the council approved on December 4th the purchase of the building for the visitor center, and we actually closed on it on January 29th. We went to you in January with a contract with the architects after undergoing a selection process, and we chose O'Donnell and Escalante. They've got good credentials in the community in terms of modern architecture. They're very well respected by the modernist community, and they did the Tahquitz Canyon Visitor Center for the tribe in the same vernacular that the visitor center did. We've had a number of meetings with the users of the center, Liz Perkovich and Linda Fort and Howard Jacobs from tourism, and we spent a lot of time at both the building, this building, and the current visitor center in the sort of programming phase to figure out what needs to be in there, what doesn't need to be in there, and how it all gets arranged. They're going to walk you through it. What we talked about, and I think when I came up last week, we talked about coming to you this week with a number of options. The options, as we're presenting them, are not, well, you could do this, you could do it this way, or you could do it this way, or you could do it this way, but they're actually more like layers. The option A is sort of minimal approach to get in the building with interior improvements and a parking lot, and just to make the visitor center functional. The option B would be addressing the single, I think, biggest concern, which is the number of restrooms that are in the building now, and adding additional restrooms. And then option C is a more complete approach with more landscaping, and it addresses the whole front and makes the center ready to accommodate other users, including the National Monument / BLM that have already expressed an interest in having a presence at the center. So with that, I think what I'll do is have the architects walk you through what the different options are, or actually the overall plan, and then we'll come back and we'll sort of talk about the cost numbers on the various on the different layers: option A, option B, option C. So, do you guys want to come up?
At the board?
Yeah, you turn.
Well, good evening.
Is your mic on?
I believe so.
Okay.
Sounds like
Good.
it. In all the schemes, the first thing we had to address was how to get people onto site and parking. So we chose to use the existing curb cut as the safest route onto the property. So the gray area here is the drive, and then we have 30 parking spaces. There's two disabled spaces here, and there's 3 extended spaces that could accommodate RVs. There is perhaps either a one-way out or maybe just a fire lane exit here adjacent to the existing curb cut. So depending upon how this develops as we get into working with fire and other people, this may become an exit, but our intention here was that it would only be one way so that people aren't cutting across multiple lanes there, so it stays safe. So that's the first thing. The parking goes in. The other thing in option A, if I can just stay with that for a moment, would be to keep the existing square footage in the building, approximately 2,300 square feet, and arrange the spaces in a way that would accommodate, as John was saying, accommodate tourism, the tribe, and then a couple other entities that are also wanting to be in the space. The National Monument people and their Coal BLM people. And having those entities in here presented a bit of a problem. So from there, we moved into some site planning where we could get the National Monument people and the BLM people out of the building and do what they do best, which is talk about the National Monument, talk about the beautiful mountains and the climate zones and things that we have. And then by doing that, we propose to have a few little display areas out here. So the main intervention, parking, arranging the spaces to accommodate in a smaller area, smaller footprint, all of the necessary functions for tourism and the tribe so that they can do what they do. When we go on to option B, there is a restroom facility that is placed at the northwest corner of the site on axis with the existing building. And that came out early on when we identified that there's only 2 single-use occupants or single-occupant handicap restrooms there on site. And it was determined that the 4 that they have now are inadequate at present, and to have 2 with a larger facility, more foot traffic, would become even more cumbersome. So the first option was let's get rid of one of the restrooms inside, have an employee-only restroom, and then have a standalone building that would act much more like a visitor center that one would go to off of a major thoroughfare, just like coming into town. So that's option A, and option B with the bathroom facilities back here. In that bathroom facility, it also has a vestibule that has vending machine, an area for vending machines, and then also storage. Both tourism and the tribe have boxes of things that they go through quite frequently. So having an on-site location to store the overflow things that they would have was also something that we determined early on. So that's option A and option B. Option C really looks at just how do we handle this and claim this area out here in a way that makes the whole project come together as one cohesive design. And so out here, there's a small landform out here that really acts as a backdrop for lectures, for groups of gatherings of groups of people, could be school children and things. So there's this green area here is slightly sloping up and is acting as a landform, almost like a small little amphitheater, so that the BLM people could be here, the National Monument people could be here, talking to groups about the general desert environment, as well as the Modernist Committee people could start their lectures in town from this location. And so it's a multi-use sort of area out here, but it's not claimed with any hard building. It's rather just landscaping and land forming. The last little item over here would be, in the future at some point, if the National Monument people or the Bureau of Land Management people came in and had the funds to have their own building, they could, we've identified a small area here for a structure. That pretty much handles the site planning, and I think Anna's going to talk about the interior design of the facility itself.
All right. one of the ideas that we explored was, due to the nature of the historical features of the building, we agreed from the onset to approach the design in a way that we wouldn't touch the existing structure. So our intervention really is divided in two areas. One is the creation of a lobby or a place where accessible to the public, which is separated by an elliptical wall, which is essentially is going to be made out of 2 layers of glass with some sort of structure in between in order to create a translucent screen and give some privacy to the tourism people. We have 2 counters, one for the tribe and the other one for tourism. We are keeping one toilet for tourism, and we essentially are trying to maximize the existing area in order to not only enhance the architecture, but also to even the placement of the counters and so forth will be done in such a way using essentially the same grid that Albert Frey did use originally. We are adding, one of the problems with this building is that it's not ADA compliant. We are adding we're extending the apron in order to have enough outdoor circulation. We would like to have all the displays essentially hung from cables or gay wires, like Albert Frey did in his early designs. And we are placing the staff of the tourism in a sort of a circular fashion. We have storage. We have a small break room, workroom, that would also act as a place where they sort of collate papers and stuff like that. And we have essentially 4 workstations in the manager's office. So the vernacular of the furnishings will be done with steel, glass, and wood, in order to sort of continue with the same sort of architecture that is very appropriate for the building. We would like to, we're intending to maximize views. Therefore, that elliptical wall, the circular wall, is just going to be 7 feet, and it's going to act more as a partition. We have a small area for videos. We're maximizing every single square foot of the building without really hindering his, the quality of the space. We have a 3D view here of the existing facility with our proposed site improvements. And as you can tell, it's very modest. Did you mention that we're going to lower the wall? No, I didn't mention that. Yeah, the wall, the main wall, which is the plaster wall, is now currently, I believe, is between 7 and 8 feet. It will come down to 3 feet in order to provide, in order to make the building more visible, because apparently that's one of the complaints from the public. And I think that's it. Any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Counsel, Mr. Roden.
the removal of one of the restrooms that's over in this corner, what's going in that area now? Is that the video area
Yeah,
that you were
it's a-
saying?
It's a small video area for the tribe and tourism.
Okay.
There's a video viewing room now in the current visitor center, and the idea now is that I think it would be a loop. The city's video would run, the tribe's video would run, and it would be a shared video space.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Hodges.
is that more important than another restroom?
Well, we looked, if you went with option A and did not build the second restroom building, obviously you would not have, you couldn't do it with one bathroom. You'd have to have the second bathroom there. We spent some time looking at what the kind of ripple effects of only having 2 bathrooms would be on the design all the way through the center. And it squeezes everything. The current door for that restroom now is nearly adjacent to the entry door. And what you'd have is people queuing kind of through the lobby for the 2 bathrooms. So it is going to be our recommendation to do the bathroom building. And given that you're going to have the public use the bathroom building, you would only need 1 staff bathroom, and it would give you the space for the video room.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mills?
If option A is chosen, then, which is not doing the toilet structure, then what you're saying is both of those toilets would remain more like, or there would be portable, something, equivalent to the higher end toilets or something like that? Is that what the proposal is? Obviously, it's not enough, even if the other one stays there.
You mean like the mayor's toilets?
Yeah, like the mayor's toilets,
I am never going to have those things in my yard again.
Good God.
I suppose that would be an option. You'd probably drop it in the same place that you place that building. Becomes an ongoing, expense. And
Well, don't we have Village Fest toilets one of these days that are portable?
In
And
theory.
we only would be using them on Thursday nights, and they could be there the rest of the time. I mean, I'm just shooting from the hip here. I don't even know what they look like. But that's it would seem like it's a potential. 'Cause we're only looking at using them on Thursday nights, and for the mayor's backyard, of course.
What a way to take a guy down, huh?
I mean, I'm looking at options, and honestly, I thought we were gonna be looking at options tonight, not one idea as far as plan goes. I thought we were gonna look at where are we going in the future with this facility, not just it's more of a master plan. I mean,
Well-
was what I was looking at.
We looked at a number of ideas. There were some ideas that came up early on, I think, when we did the architect's contract, that were like, maybe we could move the office workers out to another facility. Maybe they could be in the downtown facility or in the uptown facility. Same with storage. Do we need to spend several $100s a square foot for storage? Given that we knew that we were going to be in smaller space. And through the programming phase and through the trying to understand the operation, trying to understand the tourism operation, they use that stuff all the time. So then it becomes an operational issue of just getting somebody in a car and driving down to the other visitor center or to the storage unit or to the city yard or somewhere else to retrieve things. And there's sort of a continuous flow of people dropping things off, brochures and flyers and posters and that sort of thing. So that was, that's part of the plan.
Well, and I'm not
yeah.
questioning that at all. What I'm talking about is, what is our ultimate use of that facility if everything were perfect and we had all the money in the world? What would we be gearing towards? What people and how much space would be allocated to them if we were to get a center that would cover all of our needs? And how would that center expand, since we do have, the potential of the adjacent property owner working with us easement-wise, certainly, and in the future, I think certainly too. The last thing I want to do is develop a project that shuts off any potential expansion to the adjacent property, which we have we don't have a formal arrangement with,
Right.
but we certainly could. And I hate to use, I hate to put all our parking on site. I mean, I can understand initially that we may need to do that, but what's our goal? I mean, what are we working for? And hence, The modification in the contract before was intended to let the architects give us a master plan. I mean, working with the users, where are we going to be in 10 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? Where do we want to be in 15 years with this facility? Because, you know, heaven knows we've been talking about having that facility for years and years and years. It's been a pie in the sky, and now it's, you know, it's here. Let's develop it, at least master plan it for ultimately what it's going to be. So when someone does come in and do something around the facility, we can sit down with them and say, well, this is what our master plan is. How can we work that into what you're going to do on that corner to benefit both of us? And that's what I was hoping to see tonight. I mean, certainly I know we need to be at that level, but also I'd like to see where are we going to go in the future. I don't want to cut us off. I don't want to cut us off, and certainly I want to give us all a goal. So when we do work, we don't do something we have to tear out later. That's my nightmare, is having to do something like that. So, you know, from where we are at this point, I certainly understand it, but I need to see the big picture here. I mean,
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Hodges.
Chris, why isn't option 3 the big picture? I guess is what I'm not sure what the difference between option 3 and what you're talking about is the big picture. I know you're talking about the vacant land around it and how it would work into that.
but I don't see an increased structure.
Well, I don't
Right.
think you're going to see an increased structure,
Well, I think we should see an increase. I mean, I'm not saying.
but we have a historic site
No,
here.
no, I don't mean that. I'm not talking about the building.
Okay.
I'm talking about the property around the building.
Okay.
And potential interior space other than toilets used in the building itself. In other words, ideally, I think we would like to move the administration use that's in the main building out somewhere. And so so the retail space or the display space in there would be a much larger space. I think ultimately that would be a goal. Ultimately, I think there may be, you know, like a bookstore that wants to come in there, or, you know, some other options. And there's certainly property around there to do it if the parking use goes away. And I think we have a real potential of doing shared parking here ultimately, not right now, but I mean ultimately. And that's really all I'd like to see how we get there. And I'm not saying do the building, I'm just saying show us a footprint of how that would work.
Mr. Mayor?
Ms. Hodges.
Maybe we should have tourism come up here because it's their future. They're the ones that are the experts at these. Is it important for us to be looking to the future to remove those office spaces, to have strictly, you know, I think that they're the experts. Why don't we hear from what they have to say?
Let me join in the chorus on this. My questions of the last time we talked about that in this very room was what we were going to see, because I didn't want to see plans. I wanted to talk about who are the partners, what's going to be in there. I'd mentioned HSPB was excited about their role. They had some information coming forward. We had talked about BLM, Agua Calientes. And what I was hoping to talk about was sort of the program. What do we want to put in here? What's the, as Chris calls it, what's the vision of this thing? And with all due respect to the work done, it was not my impression that we'd see, if you will, a hard plan. I mean a hard plan. Because I wasn't prepared to say yes or no to a plan without knowing fully what the program was going to be. What's the goal of the building? And I would suggest even in conceptual forms, although it's been called the Visitor Center, it has a greater role. I mean, it has an obligation, if not a responsibility. It goes beyond just informing visitors, because that's really generic. I think it's got a role in the education, and that education can be listed with 100 different things it's supposed to educate people about, and it can be done not just by giving out brochures or pamphlets or even the video things. There are so many other technologies that are being used currently in the visitor world that I wanted to see if we could make it happen. I made notes about the books because there are when I mentioned this last week, there are so many books being written about our town, and not too many cities can claim, if you will, a library shelf full of books about our history, our past, that are currently in publication and can be acquired. So again, part of the education process. I do use this with all due respect to the term, but it's a parenthetical reference. You know, this is a sort of a shrine, and you have an obligation to make the building look like something as the icon does. I mean, it has always been this thing you saw on the way into town, whether it's the image, the landmark, but it has an obligation to kind of live up to that. Not saying you haven't, but that's part of the programming concepts I wanted to see behind it. And I think it does have a role in the retail sales part of it, because one of the concerns we have always had about the visitor center was the ability for the visitor center to at least sustain some of the costs, and the retail component has always been encouraged, if not sought. And with that in mind, at this site, with the revival, if you will, of the retro and the 50s architecture, it's a great chance to sell, to offset, to incur, and so on from a business standpoint. My programming concerns, although I appreciate the planning efforts put forward, I question the office demand in the space, because I'm looking more other kinds of functions than office. I did not buy this building, from my standpoint, for office space. I mean, there will be some needs for staff, but the intent was to address, as I said before, the visitors, the education. Office space, this is too high a price to buy for office space. You've got staffing requirements, but I don't think you need offices in this space. You need to maximize the use, if you will, towards other things. I don't, even though it's just a conceptual thing, item 16, it's as though it was added to the program later on, and I feel very uncomfortable with the location, the geometric shape, the idea of a future National Monument BLM structure, and that's a kind of a loose term. There would be no way that I would even encourage that kind of a shape form in that location, again, based on the concept of the shrine, of the preservation of the building. I had thought more about the connection of the bathrooms somehow to the building, that I think the experience is somewhat diminished if I go into this hopefully wonderful presentation and then step outside, walk across a driveway to go to the restrooms. Regardless of the weather conditions, I think it's kind of a breakdown in the experience. I think there has to be some sort of a connection in some respect, physical or otherwise, more than what there is there. I had envisioned more exhibits, more education. I don't know the current parking requirements, and I don't know what on the current building, and I don't know what generated this level of parking requirements, but this is a lot of parking, and I just need to know how that's worked out. The storage on-site versus off-site, again, premium here is space. I'm not sure I'd want to put a lot of storage here. Some, yes, but not a lot. And I don't think in some ways we fully captured the majestic view that this building affords you just by looking at the mountains. So, I mean, I've got a series of other comments and questions and such, but I wasn't anticipating a plan as much as it was, let's talk about ideas, where do you want to take it, so that you could then, as the architects, go forward and address the programming needs as we saw it, because we've never talked about it before. We just said, oh, we bought the building, let's find out what we can do with it. So the analysis I was under the impression was, analyze the building, what's going on, and then you needed our input to get more towards this. So I'll defer to other comments at this time. I've got additionals, but I'll hold.
Mr.
Roden.
Mayor, this was exactly what I expected to see. Exactly what I expected to see. Obviously, we have not communicated very well here. As I listened to some of this discussion, I think it's good, and I think we should do it, but we certainly, in my mind, did not give that kind of direction. I mean, for the plan for the future, I mean, we haven't even discussed what options we really have with what might take place at that corner. So I don't know how they could very well do anything with that, because we don't know. And we certainly haven't given them any direction with that. I think this is a grand effort. I think we perhaps need to talk and figure out exactly what we want to see at this time. I think discussion points are very valid, but I think we received pretty much what we asked for.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mills.
I don't think that statement's true at all. We said, and I don't know, I specifically said, I want to see the site master planned. And the mayor specifically said, we want to see who the players are in this thing. And to me, and I'm sure the architects know, and that when you master plan something, you have to have a program. And the program comes from the user. If perhaps they didn't get the information, which is probably what my guess is at this point, that, for whatever reason that happened, and that really isn't important now, but master plan to me means figure out where you're going to be when you've reached what your ultimate goal is, and then determine how you get there. And that's programming, that's site design, and the very last thing is what does it look like?
Right.
And I'm, believe me, I like the plan. I mean, I like the plan where it is and where it's going, but I think this site can do so much more. And my anticipation for this site, as the mayor suggested, is to be, a major element at the entry of our city to cover a lot of things. And it was the reason I suggested before, because the contract originally tied you down, and architects, to doing a specific thing, and I suggested let's cut away the programming and the site planning aspect away and let them do it hourly, and so they can explore all these different things and come back to us with some options and not spend all their time concentrated on trying to solve a current problem. That was my thinking, and perhaps I didn't get that across, but I thought I did, to get this thing right out of the chute and not do something that we're gonna have to come in and modify later. So I certainly appreciate the effort, and I know the timing problems, concerns, but it's I don't want to make a mistake because we're hurried down a path because of the time a lease expires. So.
Mr. Mayor,
Ms. Rilla Spurgeon.
I guess as I look at this, you worked with what you had. We don't own any other property around there. This is what we have, and that's what you're trying to work with. And I think it's a good effort. If we've got changes or it's not what our expectations are, then we need to share that with them and let them go back and do it. But I look at it as you've done with what we have, and this is all we have for right now.
I agree with that. That's all we own. But Mr. Raymond is very aware that the adjacent property owner is willing to work with us in any way, shape, or form he can. This, to me, doesn't do that. I think we need to figure out where we want to be. And, if it takes a subcommittee, as much as I hate to say that, if that's what it takes, then then certainly we should do that. But I know the time constraints. I know we need to get going quickly. So if a subcommittee is appropriate, and Dana and Jeannie are available, I'm sure they'd love to do it.
You got it.
And I will suggest to you, even though this is all we have to deal with, my thoughts were that we were going to help shape the program to tell you how to deal with what we had. And even if you got no other square footage at all, the intent of this meeting, at least the closing comments I made at the last session we had, was we were going to shape the program. We were going to talk about what we wanted in there. And I can recall mentioning we're not going to see plans, we're not going to see drawings, I don't want to see a design, I want to talk about what's going into the building. It was here.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Roden.
could we hear from the Bureau?
Yeah, just going to
Yep.
say, I think
Thank
we
you.
need.
Good evening, Linda.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. One of the things I wanted to explain to y'all, when you're looking at the plan up there, it was referred to as office space. In reality, what it is for our reservationists. Right now, in the present site, we're getting approximately 14,000 people a month through our doors. We also got 14,000 people through our doors in August. That shows the amount of people that are just coming through. We expect the traffic to at least triple because of the historical nature of the building. Those are workstations for reservationists because we have so many people that come in and say, we need a hotel room for the night. So that's not office space, as we know office space are actually computer stations for hotel reservations. Also on the bathroom, that type of structure is prefabricated. So when we go to expand or whatever we can, it's not something that we have to knock down. It can be moved or expanded or whatever. The main concept that both Lance and Anna worked so diligently on is the end uses for our visitors to come in and have an opportunity to get visitors information. The views are spectacular. They are not blocked, either looking up to Chino Canyon or the mountains or looking out the front to the windmills. You have a full view. But and for the parking spaces right now at the current visitor center, we only have 12. We have people that are parking on 111. They're parking up behind the visitor center in the apartment complex. They're parking on the road beside it. So to say we have 30 is really not too much. We also, at some point in time, will need to look at RV and motor coach parking because we hope that our bus tours will stop into the visitor center and spend 30 minutes and do shopping and look at the videos that show all of the different things there are to see and do in our area. So the layout of the visitor center as it is has been created to make it very user-friendly, very efficient. As you know, we have at least 50 different displays in our current visitor center where people pay to put their big wall hangings on the wall to showcase their business. We also have brochure racks. The storage that we need is to replace the brochures. We need those on site because if we run out of a hotel's brochure, Murphy's Law, that's when they're going to come to the visitor center and say, where's my brochures? Well, we have to run 2 miles down the street to get them. So it's really important that we're able to keep the collateral material that we use on site so we can keep it replenished.
How big is your current square footage at the existing building?
It's about 3,000. 3850, and we're going to 23, 22.
How many?
23.
23? How many stalls do you have at the existing? Parking?
Parking 12,
And how many do you have here?
30. 2 of which are handicapped.
Is the 23 including the bathrooms? No.
Inside?
Is 23 under current roof? Mm-hmm. And how big is the bath in the back, roughly?
800.
Also, if I may, when you're talking about, expanding, boy, y'all are sitting there with your, just ready to go. As you come in, you have the Palm Springs sign, which is a big photo stop. Working with the adjacent landowner, what we would like to do is even develop that where we would actually have a walkway of some sort from the visitor center, because there is a gate. There's a block wall in back, a cinder block wall that we cannot remove because that's the original building, but original wall. But the white plaster wall can come down. But we'd like to do like a little walkway over to the Palm Springs sign where they have the little oasis of palm trees to make that part of the welcome as they come into the city. Make a little park area, so to speak.
It's a great idea, and that's the stuff we wanted to see. And let me ask you, Linda, if I think the way the architects have done it, I think the views we're taking. I think the views are well kept, and I think all that works good. I've been through there a lot, and I understand that, and I appreciate it. But I would think that ultimately you wouldn't want to put displays in front of that south glass. And you have to do it in this scheme because there's just no wall space to do it. Ultimately, you would want to have someplace else or some means of expanding that display so you could open up that front, that glass storefront, and so people can look in there and see what's happening and be enticed instead of looking at the back of
Actually,
of the
they're going to
display.
be hanging from the ceiling, and they won't block that view, kind of like on a pulley system. And when we have space for 50 displays, but they'll actually be up above so as not to block the views.
They'll be up high.
Yes.
So you can't walk up to them and read them and stuff.
Well, we'll do some. We'll have you stand around. You can read them to them.
But ultimately, I think you need, as any retail space needs, wall space. I mean, that's what you need. My thought is ultimately, where do you want to be? I mean, what do you see here? And that's what I don't see here. I mean, I see this as a great start, but where do we want to be, the next phase of this, of the construction? And there's a lot of different options, I think. I'll mention to you that the cinder block wall is not part of the historical approval of this building. The building is approved, not the masonry wall. The wall in front and the fountain was all torn out with the approval of the HSPB. So don't let that wall, that existing wall behind you, be thinking in terms of that as being part of the historical approval, because it's not. That existing wall is there because the previous owner didn't have enough money to take it down and do what he really wanted to do. So, and actually we took parts of the wall out to replace parts of the blocks in the building that were done that were damaged. But I don't see the block wall. I see the block wall as more of a deterrent, at least in the future, not now, because the site does need to be secure. But I envision, as you did, some way to get out to the current sign and some linkage in between there. And in reality, maybe that's where the parking needs to be. And I know Caltrans is not going to let us have a curb cut off of there, but there's some other way perhaps to make that work. And that's all I think the mayor and I have really been looking for. Let's see where we want to go. Let's see ultimately what we want to do, and to get you the footage up here to make this the best facility it could ever be, ultimately.
Well, I'm delighted to know that cinder block wall isn't part of the historical significance to that building. I think we were under the impression that it was. In our dreams, when we've been talking about what do we want the visitor center to be, we would love to have a little coffee type cafe where people can have a cup of coffee, sit and look through our brochures, look at our visitor's guide, have an internet area where they can check their emails. Our books are our #1 bestseller in both of our visitor centers, so we would love to expand our retail area for books. The type of Palm Springs merchandise we sell is very upscale. It's not the 3 T-shirts for whatever. We would like to expand that because a lot of people, when they come in, want to have a Palm Springs Izod polo shirt. They want to have a sweatshirt before they go up to the tram. So, we have really great thoughts and ideas, and we kind of thought we were restricted by that black block wall as far as expanding outward or to the other side.
What's the ability under the current classification for adding on to the building?
If you can get it approved, you can add it on.
I need you, unfortunately, I need you to come for the microphone for the public, please. It's a Class 1 site.
Hello, my name is it on? My name is Kathy Marks. I'm associate planner, and I'm working with the HSPB in regards to this project. No. Hello? Better. Excuse me. My name's Kathy Marks. I'm a planner here for the city. I'm working with the HSPB in regards to this project. This site is a Class 1 designated site, our local designation. It can be changed. It could probably be demolished if we had the approval of the board. It doesn't have a state significance, nor does it have a federal significance. It could. It certainly has the justification for that, but it's just a local designation. When it comes to the wall, I honestly can't say that the wall is part of the historic designation. But when I would look at the site overall, and when we reviewed this just recently with HSPB, with Anna and Lance, it was their understanding that the materials in the wall were historic. The back, they cannot be duplicated. They're not available anymore. And they weren't averse to the wall. They were for the wall, in all honesty. But that doesn't mean that there could be changes. I mean, there could be discussion, and no one was really able to date the wall to say it was built at the same time that was part of the designation that Frey wanted and when he built it. We do have to remember the wind. It's a very windy site, and it has a physical purpose to a certain extent. Do you have any specific questions in regard to the HSPB's review of the project? I could talk about that.
Yeah, can we add on to the building?
Yes, with consensus.
Mm-hmm.
But why would you want to? That's what we have historic sites for. And this is what irritates me to no end about historic sites. Because we have a Class 1 designation, and all you have to do is just come to the council, and the council can change it. And it can be demolished tomorrow. Because our ordinance has no teeth to it whatsoever, and it's ridiculous. You either have historic sites or you don't have them. You maintain them the way they are, and to be quite honest, this one is spectacular the way it is. There is no need to add on. There is no need to change it. Let's work with what we have, because it is spectacular.
And I respect that opinion, but the question was, can we add on it? And we can. And when you're going to spend $650,000 on one side of this and potentially another $600,000 on this, and you got $1.3 million, and all you got is 2,400 square feet in visitor centers, it does or may not address the needs. And I think from a
We
practical...
knew that when we bought it.
Yeah, exactly. We knew that when we bought it.
I understand that. I understand that. But the practical needs of the center, from a programming standpoint, are not addressed currently in this configuration. So I'm
Well, now,
looking...
you're saying that, but you're not the expert, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
The
I
expert
didn't
is
claim to be
tourism.
the expert.
The tourism department is saying this is exactly what they wanted, and this is exactly what they need.
But Dana...
But you're saying, no, you know better than them, and should be different than that. You're trying to micromanage this project, and it's not fair, because it's not your project.
And I thank you for that opinion, but I eschew the fact that the reason this is before us is to ask us what our thoughts were. Why else would you bring it here?
And I thought I just heard Ms. Forts say she would love to have a coffee shop in here. She loved it. She'd love to have her whole site here. She would love to have everything there. Well, I want her to have what she wants. But
And
as
how are
she
you going
will,
to pay for it?
I'm saying in phases. I mean, it's going to have to be master planned, just like you do any project, just like we're currently doing on the convention center. It needs to be master planned, and you would expand based on what you can afford to do. And I think we can do that. I think you, as I'm sure Anna and Lance will attest, that you can add onto this building, and yet make this building appear in its whole, that you haven't touched it. And I'm confident that can be done. And you don't even need to. I mean, you can have a breezeway separation. There's 15 ways to accomplish it. But there needs to be more thought, more master planning here, and that's all I'm saying is. And at this point, I would like to see it go back to the architects, and let's look at the architects and the user, and let's look at a master plan, keeping envisioned the overall picture of where this thing and this entire corner can ultimately go. And that includes conversations with the tram, because I know they've got needs that they're looking towards, and more so than just having a space in there, but and working with Mr. Nichols as to what we can do, and let's look at what our options are for the overall big picture, and I don't doubt one bit that we're going to ultimately come back to something like this we're looking at for the first phase, but let's not overlook the ultimate build out of this site and what its intent is and what it can do. I mean, that's why I always felt, as all of us have, it's been a phenomenal site for this use. Phenomenal. Couldn't be any better.
Mr. Mayor, how big is this reflecting pool?
In square footage?
Uh-huh.
It's approximately 175 square feet. Oh, the big one in the
Yeah,
upper right-hand side, yeah, it's about 400 square feet.
400 square feet. I mean, why couldn't that be just like, the A&W is downtown, just kind of sat there, yet it was small but very functional. I'm not saying it's an A&W, but it could be your little coffee shop. It could, I don't know, thinking different.
Okay, then let's think different. Let's let them go think different. Let's let tourism get together with them, and let's let them come back with some ideas. If that's what the goal of this is to be, let's do it.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Roden.
I just have, I think if there are things that, as council members, that if we know that we don't want to see there, I mean, I think we should let them know that. I mean, there was some question about BLM and I guess some other parties. I guess if we could know that initially, so that if there are any concerns about, some certain agencies or anything, it will assist them in bringing back something to us that's more acceptable. And perhaps that will ultimately be a subcommittee.
If other partners wanted to locate here, whether it's BLM or the Agua Calientes or the museum or the tram, the primary function is the visitor center. The partners can come and can contribute towards the development and the construction cost of their space, and their rent offsets it. It's a business proposition. Anything shy of that, you're going to give up the valuable space you have here. So you've got to actually try to build business partnerships to see if they want to come, and it makes for a better center. You've got currently 3,850 square feet, and you're shoehorning it down to 2,400. Not counting the baths, because you don't have baths like that now. You're taking 3,850 and you're shoehorning it down to 24. And you got a space problem. If you change nothing, you got a space problem. You have virtually windows on your exterior walls, very difficult to get display. If you hang them too high so you can see underneath them, they're too hard to be seen and appreciated. I mean, functionally, you have some issues that have to be addressed. They have to be discussed. I'm not telling you how to solve it, but you have to discuss these issues with more practicality behind it.
Mr. Mayor?
And that's what I'm looking for from tonight. Mr. Roden.
And I guess the comment about the office space, I could see office space. I don't really see reservationist space. I mean, reservationists can be anywhere in the city.
Phone call.
But people stop there to make a reservation.
Well,
That's
this is
what they're
true.
saying.
This is true, but they can pick up a phone there and talk to anyone
that's
and make a
true. That's true.
reservation. So I'm looking at the wisest and best use of this facility. So, and I'm not sure if that particular use is that. So
Here again, I think we're trying to micromanage the department, that they know what they're doing. Maybe that's not the best use. Yes, you can have a phone there, but somebody's on the phone, so then they walk out of the building and we don't get the reservation.
well, I'm talking about multiple phone
so-
lines. Because if
Well-
we had 5 people, yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, just on that point, we spent a lot of time talking about that. And all of the employees in the visitor center pull double duty. They're reservationists. They also work the retail floor, and they go back and forth. And it's where the need is. And so if you have dedicated reservationists off-site, they're not available for when you have a need, when there's a big crush and working cash register in the retail floor and that sort of thing.
But you have people who are there to do that one function, and that's to assist with information about the city, and not necessarily reservationists.
No, well, they do both. Well,
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Reddy.
If I may explain the function of the reservationist, it's not like you go to the airport where they have the bank of phones and you can pick up and call the Hilton or the Hyatt and make a reservation. So many times you have people coming into town and they're not really sure where they want to stay. They don't know the area. They don't know if they want to be on the north side, downtown, or on the south side. They don't know if they want a budget hotel or if they want upscale, first, full service, limited service, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes our reservationists will spend quite a large amount of time working with the guest and finding specifically the type of property they want to stay at, because we want them to have a good experience and we want to keep them in Palm Springs. To have a bank of phones that goes directly to the hotels, number one, our visitor service is primarily funded by, I'm sorry?
Yeah, I didn't say to a hotel. It
I know,
could be the
but-
same people.
But a bank of phones, and you have somebody that's standing on the phone talking to an unknown person away, and they don't have the visibility of the hotel, looking at the different features and everything else. It would be, it's not customer friendly.
Okay, and I understand that. But it's also how we're geared to sell our product. If our people are selling our product for $49 or $59, and others are selling their product at $129, there's a great disparity there. I don't care how friendly it is. So there's some things I think that bear some discussion.
Mr. Reddy.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, understanding the longer term for the master plan, my concern right now, and I would ask council what I need direction on tonight and what's here before you is, at the end of September, I have to have a certificate of occupancy in my hand so I can move tourism and all of tourism's baggage, so to speak, into that facility, because the lease will be ending where it currently is, and they have to have that facility ready to move into. Understanding that long-term there may be other uses there, but when you talk to the TRAM or the BLM or any other of those other agencies, and you might ask them, do you want to use it? Well, sure. Well, what's the use? Well, we're not sure. How much space do you need? I'm not sure. How much money can you spend? We're not sure that either. That kind of master planning we know is going to take several months to piece that together. And my concern is that's going to go in a timetable well beyond what I need to get our tourism in there in the timetable before our current lease ends. So that's why what's before you this evening is if you would give us the nod on, I presume our recommendation was option B, we would get moving on that option so they would have the opportunity to move in. If option A is your option, that's fine too. That does not have the restrooms to the west. And then, of course, then we will come back with the master plan for the future phases. But I do need some sort of direction this evening so we can get moving to have tourism move in. Part of the other issue is right now there is nowhere else to put the other functions of tourism. Linda has not been willing to give up 1 inch of space because she is already losing significant square footage for her operations. And so whatever is going to happen in the future would be future phases indeed. So hearing Mr. Mills and the mayor's request for the master plan. I think we hear that message, we will move on that, but I need some direction so we can get moving to get Linda and the visitor center in for their October deadline. Thank you.
I think, Mr. Reddy, with all due respect, I don't think you understand the purpose of a master plan. Because you don't have the master plan and then create this, okay? This comes after the master plan. And I am not going to approve anything like this until we have a master plan on this site, which is what I asked for in the first place, which is why we revised the contract. And I'm not saying we won't end up here. And to do what you're talking about, you know, I'm not talking about, and the mayor's not talking about working things out with BLM or whoever right now as to what is going where and how much it's going to cost. But you can master plan a footprint of a structure that goes in here that's so many square feet that ultimately you know you can have users in there, and then you can take your time and deal with that however you want to and get your partners. And then you can work into this. But it needs to know, you need to know how all the pieces fit together, and you need to know that now. And you don't want to build something that you have to tear out later because you didn't plan it up front. And that's all I'm saying. And you know, I don't think it's a monumental effort. I think it's another week.
I was just going to ask that, Mr. Mayor, how long would it take to get a master?
About a week.
Okay, so why don't we bring it back in a week then, and let's take a look at it, and get you the answers that you need at that time, if it'll only take a week.
Madam Clerk.
Are you talking about another week for a study session or
No, this
to
could
your
be, this could
regular
be on the regular
council?
agenda, because we've already talked about it.
May I say something,
Yeah.
please?
Yes.
It will probably take a week to draw what we already talked about, which is including, we're just sketching down here, including a landscape walkway linkage between the sign and the building, putting parking at the front. I mean, all these ideas we talked about, Mr. Mills. We just, due to the time is of the essence, we focus on the building. And one of the ideas was that, yes, this building is going to be the linkage to several functions, such as the tramway, perhaps a parking structure, et cetera, But our understanding was that we needed to stay, you know, within these boundaries. But it wouldn't hurt us to go back and rescue those drawings and just perhaps just risk, you know, withdraw them. We already had them. We didn't know it was part of our discussion tonight.
And you can have them within a week?
Oh,
We
yeah.
could have them for next week's
Yeah,
agenda?
they would have to be very general, that's
Okay.
all.
Yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
that's fine. And that's what we need to do, just put it on the regular
But-
agenda.
And as much as I know it hurt you guys, you could do them by hand.
Probably we use the computer. No, but they will be very, very general. I mean, just, you know, buildings and masses and that kind of thing.
Ms. Hodges, it'll be all right then if I get the materials to you as I get them?
Yes.
You know, like if they're later, then, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I would suggest you place it on the agenda, you schedule it, and then we wait for the materials to catch up. Okay? Very good. We'll go to item 2, which is the Swim Center Skate Park.
Have we got 10 minutes then? Yeah, that's perfect, that's all we need. It shouldn't be any longer than that. We'll just talk real fast. This is short. 30 feet.
Yeah, give me one. All right, so let's go forward on this. Yeah. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is the issue on the skate park. The reason we wanted to bring it to your attention this evening is we did receive the bids, and the bids came in over what we had budgeted, and we wanted to come to you this evening with a suggested scenario to deal with the over budget. In summary fashion, I do want to just go over on this handout that was given to you. On the first page, the 1.6 million you see is what the architect's estimate was. And I'm just going to go through these pages quickly, and then staff is going to talk about the detail. On the second page, the original. This is the estimate's architect. Okay. On the second page are the funds available, which were approximately $1.2 million. On the third page are the bid results. The bid results
So
that
on page 2 says we're $346,000 short to start with.
correct, which also said we had $1.2 million to work with.
Okay.
The third page was the actual bid results, where the swim facility was the $1.5 million, and the skate park facility, if you look at Schedule B, which was your basic facility with the regular lights, was the $800,000, which comes up to about $2.3 million. So as you see, from the 1.2 to 2.3 was a little over $1 million. And then finally, on the last page, or the next to last page, are the options that we have. And the long and short of it is, the option, and I'm going to start backward, the option that I'm recommending, and then we'll go back to the beginning and staff will give you some of the details. The option that I am recommending, because of the $1 million shortfall in the bid coming in different than what we expected, what we could do at this point is we could go ahead and build the skate park, where we would anticipate that it would still be done on time. What that would require moving the skate park over approximately 30 to 45 feet. Now, that could be accomplished by moving onto an easement, and I would be looking for direction, if council adopted this option, to tomorrow to make a request to the school board. I would contact the Palm Springs School Board Superintendent. We have an easement on their property. For a road. We potentially could ask them if we could use that easement for the 30 feet of the skate park, which means we'd be able to go ahead and put the skate park on the same site, 30 feet over, and then do the swim center as a separate capital project at a future time when our revenues allowed it. Now, we would still be able to do the improvements to the swim center filtration system. So in essence, that program would go on as planned as well. So with that, I would like Scott, Mikesell, and also we have Marcus from the engineering department to run you through some of the details of how that might unfold. Scott, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. One of the primary issues that led us to where we are this evening, aside from the fact that we obviously have a significant overrun in the bids with the available funding, was we tried to come up with a solution. And when this project was originally designed, it envisioned demolition of the existing building facility and constructing a new joint-use facility to service both the swim center and the skate park. And with the colored illustration that you have before you, that really spells it out quite nicely, as opposed to show you how integrated those two facilities are. The yellowish area is what the existing building is, and then obviously the pink area bisects that. So the skate park took away the existing building. What Mr. Reddy is identified to you is to stay within what we have available to us financially today. We at the staff level looked at what we could possibly do without totally redesigning the skate park, without totally redesigning the existing building, trying to make something fit. And essentially what we've come forward with are a couple of options. And the most workable option that we see is to take the building and try and shift it to the east. That would allow the skate park to be built. We would not have to demo the existing building, but obviously we wouldn't meet some of our original goals that we had attempted to meet with the project, which was to have a new facility, a joint use facility, new and additional restrooms to service the skate park, and then we would have a monitoring issue because the building's kind of in the way visually from where the skate park would end up. But what it does accomplish is that we could build the skate park within the funds that we have. This has been a long, long project.
Long.
And then obviously the one other option is to go it as bid, but that is substantially more money. And we didn't feel that that was much of an option given our current budget situation. And then our third option was to start over, and that really doesn't work very well either. So we've tried to come up with a workable solution, given the nature of our situation and the funds available. One of the things that we did early on with the project that's spelled out in the sheets that you have, because there are bond funds attributable to this project, it had to be separated out into two functions. Because of prevailing wage issues and stuff like that. So we split the bids, and that's why it shows you on the bid sheet the various options attached to bid schedule A and bid schedule B, and it's why it's not as clean cut and all-inclusive. But one of the things that we want to do is what we have to do. Our swim center requires by Department of Health regulations that we need to replace the pool equipment down there. That bid came in substantially higher than what we had anticipated, but what we're recommending tonight would accomplish that, would replace the swim center equipment, which we have to do, upgrade the decking material, give it a fresh look at least, and then put the skate park adjacent to it. And what our vision is this evening would be to come back in a stage 2 and try and redesign a simpler structure that would meet conceptually what we had originally tried to do, which would be a joint use facility, combined entryway, and all of those other functions. And that's kind of where we are at. If you want some clarification on bid-related issues, if on the drawing that we put together, and I'm no architect by any means, that's why I use these big, heavy colored pens. The bluish area is the building and canopy and how it relates to the existing site plan. The yellow area is the existing structure, the buildings, and that would all have been demoed. And then the pink area is the layout of basically the center portion and the east portion of the skate park. Down towards the bottom of the sheet, it would go off to your left, extended. And then the green is our current property line between us and the school district. And what we would propose to do is attempt to shift it to the right as you're looking at your sheet, which would be to the east at the site.
Now, Scott, would that include, though, removing the pedestrian walkway or the observers area?
Yes, on the far right, there are a couple of pink lines that run vertically up and down the page. What I tried to do was show you that there was a pedestrian observing area designed into the skate park that's about a 10-foot area. What we would propose to do would be to eliminate that, tighten up the skate park. That way it doesn't change the geometry of the skate park itself, because of the skate park being a highly technical item. We don't have the expertise to say this bowl should be 10 feet or whether it should be 12 feet or whether the angle should be 5 degrees or 7 degrees. What we attempted to do was shift the project without creating or causing any complications to the critical elements of the skate facility, because I can only speak for myself, but I don't design skate parks. And so we tried to preserve the integrity of the product by doing that, and we feel that we can get there from here.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Mills?
Scott, just playing off your last sentence is you don't design skate parks, but in essence you are here in what you're talking about doing, because you're changing the way the flow here has to work. And I don't design skate parks either, but I do see that, you know, if you look at the distance of that center bowl, you know, that overlaps into the current locker area, and you slide that over to miss the locker building, you've got just enough space for that going right up to the property line of the school district where their fence is now. You've got a condition, which means you lose that ramping area right there. Now, I don't know what that ramping area is right there. Maybe it can be lost, but there's still a connection of some kind that I think has to happen there. The other thing that happens is, if you look at the grade differences in there, you know, you've got a berm which negates a retaining wall. Now you're going to have to move it over, and you're going to have a retaining wall condition at the fence. There's problems. There's costs, and there's other things that are going to happen with doing that. So, you know, that's just one thing. And I appreciate what you're trying to do. And I'm not saying it won't work, but I think it's not as simple as I think we're being told here. But along that same line, I think it has potential to work, but there are those problems that need to work out. And I thought one of the things we were talking about before was the ability to get from Ramon back to the cul-de-sac, and that is going to go away. If I'm understanding what you're talking about.
This design does not incorporate any path of travel from Ramon north to the end of Pavilion Way.
Right.
We never intended to have a walkway in there. The area in question is simply a seating area that people within the skate park, really they would be skaters, would be able to sit down onto a bench that would be located in those areas and essentially rest. And if you look at the flow lines and the elevations, there's a kind of a checkerboard pattern to the right of your sheet, and that slopes towards the wall. You're entirely correct that topographically we are going to do some grading work, and it probably will cause us to put some level of a retaining wall possibly over there. We haven't fully examined that yet, but this project, the demolition, is a large excavation project to remove dirt from that area, so the elevations will be going down. Secondly, the limits of the skate park, which is on the sheet that you have, there's kind of an S-type curve that's in the middle of the sheet to the left. That is the outer limits. That designates the actually what we had called a seating wall between the pool and that, and there's a very similar structure with another kind of an S feature. That right there is the limit of the skating facility itself. So that's the wall that would actually be moving to that corner point, if you follow. If not, I could go up to the site plan and show you there. Certainly there's some redesign features that we have to do. We know that. And engineering is aware of that. We're aware of that. But we think that we can squeeze it in there and make it work.
My next question, and you may not have a walkthrough there, Scott, but there was physical passage through there. It's not fenced off. You could have, in this plan, you can get from Ramon back through, not on concrete, but you can get
On this particular
according to where it
site
shows
plan,
the
it
fence
doesn't.
anyway.
Yeah, on this particular site plan, it doesn't show it. But on the drawings that were bid, there is a physical barrier. There's
Okay.
a fence right there at
Okay.
that corner. Yes, there is.
Okay. Who do you propose is going to redesign this? You've got skate park design to deal with. You have grading to deal with, and you have potential. Well, I think that's probably all that you're talking about dealing with now. Who do you propose to do that?
We would have to go back to our survey folks and have them shoot to the elevations to the east of us. Our engineering department or another civil engineer, we'd have to go out there. I think a civil is correct. We'd have to contract with them for the minor portion to adjust the grades. We have a pretty good topo of the entire area. The modifications to the skate park that we're talking about are only flat work. There's no coping involved. There's no angular concrete pouring or anything. It's simply flat work that is adjacent to the park. And what we're talking about is basically just sliding it.
I know it sounds simple, and I know it's not that simple, and I know Marcus knows it's not that simple either. But I think it's probably the right way to go, judging how much water is under the bridge at this point.
We have $1 million problem, so it becomes simple compared to the $1 million.
The other comment is you're asking us to look at keeping the equipment bid, but although now we're replacing equipment and it's an existing location, correct?
Correct.
So that number is not going to be the same because we were moving it before.
Well, the equipment bid, as far as the pool equipment,
Yeah.
correct.
Mhm, right.
No, we're not modifying that bid in any way, shape, or form. We're still putting the sand filtration devices on the exterior of the between what is the chemical room and the pool structure, and redoing the mechanical features.
All that stays the same.
All of that stays the same, and that was one of the reasons we bid it that way.
Okay.
Was to separate those two functions out, and
that is 100% over budget.
exactly 100%. Well, not exactly, but
Darn near. Darn near.
96%, I'd say.
Pardon me for rounding off, but okay. So that's one thing that is a concern, and Scott, was that bid just to somebody that does that kind of work, or was it looped in or linked in with some other kind of work to where, replacing equipment, you can deal with you don't have to deal with a general. You can deal with a subcontractor essentially. But did that bid come back through a general, or was it just a subcontract bid?
I would defer to Marcus if I'm wrong here, but I'm going to try and answer. It came through a subcontractor,
Okay.
a civil engineer that does specifically pool bid.
Well, you're asking about the bid results.
Well, I'm asking if we rebid it, and it's just simply a equipment change out, and it's not all this other stuff, are we going to get a better number? That's what I'm asking.
You might. Because it would be specific to just the pool equipment rather than when it was bid as a general building project.
Yeah, and my suggestion would be to do that. The other thing is we're talking about keeping the existing bathhouse. I don't know about that word, but that locker room, let's say. And I think we need some study when you're laying this out of how do you get physically inside to use the toilet rooms. I think we're talking about dual use now of the existing toilet rooms. And are we looking at, is there potential, I haven't been in there in a long, long time, so I don't know what state they're in, if they're in real bad repair, or do we need to look at at potentially doing some Band-Aid work on that to make them acceptable? Or how do you physically get from the skate park into there, and is there fencing we can do to make that work better, and just how does all that work? So, and I'm not asking for an answer now, I'm just thinking, when we see this again, I'm assuming we will, let's make sure we've got all those bases covered, and we can look at that. But I think you guys pretty much know which option needs to happen, so.
You're asking some excellent questions, and they're not anything that we haven't thought about within the last week or so. Logistically, to get kids in and out of the restrooms, there may be an opportunity, I guess is the best way to put it, towards to breach the existing wall on what would be the west end of the skate facility, to allow them to come in that way, versus trying to create another entryway or the logistics of monitoring it from up there. We have some challenges in front of us to make this happen, but I think those challenges are far outweigh the cost differential to go the direction that it was bid. But yeah, you're bringing up stuff that we immediately saw, that if we're going to do this, we're going to have an awareness for some difficulties. But knowing that down the line, ultimately, we want to build a building there that meets, code compliance, and that is a lot more convenient to service both the swim center and skate park, that would be probably phase 2, of our master plan.
The other thing I would like to mention is that please review your contract for ownership of documents and your right to use the documents to do what you're talking about doing here, okay?
Other council questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Sarges.
Well, I think what's presented here this evening is what we need to do. We certainly don't have any additional money or funds to go looking for. This is a project that needs to be completed, not continue to look for funds for. So I think the suggestions are very good. And we'll just have to work on phase 2 and getting the rest of the project done with the money when it comes along available for us to do it. But I think that I certainly support what's being presented.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Oden.
I think the option that's presented is the only one that's feasible for us at this time, and while we may incur some additional expenses, they'll certainly be a lot less than any of the other options. Initially, that's the way this project was brought before us, so we're back to where we started. Certainly, the change was optimum. If we could have done all of those things in that location and created a comprehensive center, I think it would have been a good thing. Simply hasn't worked out, so let's go with what we have.
Well, if I may.
Sure.
The skate park is what the voters approved several years ago. And this other stuff was just frosting on the cake that we added because it would be nice to be able to add it. But obviously, that's not a reality. I sure did. Stale.
I'd like to add just one last thing, is that there, as Mr. Oden, you mentioned, we're going to have to contract with a couple of other individuals to not only complete construction management of this, but do some topographic work and stuff. So you're entirely correct. We're going to be coming back to you with some agreements in the very near future so that we can get this ball rolling and get the project moving as fast as we can. So you've got the commitment of not only me, but the city manager and the rest of this staff, and we're certainly trying.
Okay. The comments or questions? Not bad. 8:30. See no further business for the council. 8:30. We'll stand adjourned. Thank you and good night.